Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing great.
Nice.
Yeah, weather's been nice.
Yes, indeed. I was just going to say, once again, these Thursdays come so fast.
Oh, yes, they do. Even the day of Thursday, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, we've got, 8 hours, 6 hours till the show. And then before I know it,
Here we are.
here we are.
Totally. How are you guys out there? I see there's a few people here. Thanks for being here on time.
Yeah.
And if you're catching this after the fact, oh my
Uh-oh.
phone is streaming
Mario
us.
had it on YouTube on his phone. That's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, if you're here, awesome to see you guys. Interact in the chat if you have not. I like seeing who's present
Yeah, me too.
and all of that. But yeah, I'm stoked for the drink today, actually.
Yeah, me too. And it's a seasonal drink because, flowers and plants and things are really starting to come alive. I mean, they've been alive for a while, but they're
Right.
really starting to now blossom and bloom and things like that. So today we are having lilac and lemon balm lemonade.
Ooh.
Yes. So cheers, baby.
Cheers, bub.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Very good.
Yeah, it's good. So the whole thing with the lilac is you make lemonade, just regular lemonade. And if you have access to fresh lilacs, you can just take off a flower head or two and throw it into your pitcher. And so you're basically kind of like, in a way, making like a flower essence a little bit.
Right.
And then so I did the same thing, obviously, with the lemon balm. I just threw a leaf of lemon balm in there, and you're getting kind of like the essence of all these things. So
The presentation, as always, is lovely.
yeah.
So, okay, our neighbor's mowing their lawn. So, should we close the window? Can you guys hear that? Is that distracting at all? Because if it is, we will close the window.
Yeah.
If not, we're just going to leave it open, right?
Yeah, we'll leave it open. If it's better to have the window open than whatever. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Agreed.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, actually, man, we forgot to have the slides going when we first started here.
Oh yeah, we did. Well, we can do that.
Now's the time.
We'll do it. We'll do it right now.
Totally. All right. There we go. You guys are watching last Thursday, every Thursday.
Nice.
If you guys want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/thehealinghome.
Yeah, just want to say thank you to everybody who has signed up recently. Super awesome. All the support that's been coming through for us is really cool. We appreciate it so much. And honestly, I mean, it is allowing us to continue doing these things and be our own bosses and just kind of basically live the dream in a little bit of a way,
Oh, yeah, totally. 100%. Every bit helps. And the people who are currently supporting are Chance Garden, Binaboo, Inland Sea, Liam Shrimp Anderson, Amy Messner, Miri, and Hank, who we just saw, by the way.
We did.
It was awesome to see you guys recently. Jenny G, Erica, Moonlander, who is in the chat, Dave, Mary, and then Catherine.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So that is awesome. And let me remove that. We'll shout those guys out again at the end of the show.
Yes, indeed.
And as usual, we have topics that we've chosen.
Yep.
And I'm pretty excited for my topic.
Good.
It was something that I was kind of going back and forth with, but it's going to be a good one.
Nice. Yeah, I kind of, it took me a little time to settle on a topic today. And so that seems to happen. Sometimes, just like anything in life, sometimes things come to you right away. And then other times you have to kind of weigh things out and think about stuff. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, today seemed like that kind of day. So
Before we get into all of that, let's see who's in the chat. What do you think?
Sure.
Cool. Alrighty. So who do we have here? Flat Earth Ippy is here. What's up, dude?
Hey, Hank.
It was awesome seeing you, man. Had some good conversations. My Cherie is here. Hello.
Hello. We had a great conversation just on YouTube, me and her, about hula, because she brought up leaving lays on the trees when you make a lay with the flowers,
Mm-hmm.
and you actually will like leave one on the tree as an offering, because we talked about leaving offerings and stuff like that around herbs.
Uh-huh.
And she mentioned being a hula dancer.
Oh, really?
Yep. For I don't know if she still is, but for a portion of her life. And then I told her about how my grandma was a hula dancer, still
Oh,
is.
yeah, totally.
And used to teach classes in her neighborhood, like back in the day, like in the 60s and 70s. And
Right.
then in turn, she taught my mom and my aunts how to dance hula, and they're pretty good at it for a couple of white ladies. I'll say that. So yeah, but we were having a back and forth on YouTube.
Gotcha.
But yeah, she was not formally trained or anything like that. She never lived in Hawaii, but she just really always loved Hawaii. I think it's because she really likes Elvis. And so I think her and a lot of women of that era kind of like got swept up
Yeah.
in the Elvis craze.
Right.
And Elvis has a whole weave with Hawaii. And so I think that influenced my grandma a lot. But she's always been a great dancer, has a lot of rhythm, and she can hula.
Right.
And still does, even at the ripe age of 88. She'll still find a way to do it.
Her rhythm will be on display early next month.
It will at my brother's wedding. And you better believe she's going to make you dance with her.
Please, baby, no matter what. I'm down.
Okay.
I think it's mandatory.
Yeah,
probably,
it is.
right?
You're going to
But
have to dance with a lot of people.
whatever you do not, for the love of God, let me forget my dancing shoes, okay? Because
I didn't even know you had those.
if I forget them, I can't do it. You know
Yeah,
what I
you'll be
mean?
in trouble.
So it's kind of critical.
You'll have to answer
That's just
to-
me, though.
Yeah,
right?
you'll have to answer
You guys
to
all
a
have
couple.
dancing shoes, right? We all have a good pair of dancing shoes. Hey, Kabir, nice to see you.
Hey, hey.
What's up, Dave?
Howdy, Dave.
Elsie King is here. What's up, Lucas?
Hey, Lucas.
There's going to be some information you might be interested in a bit later, perhaps. PK says, "Hey, pole man." I don't know if that's a reference to me or to someone else.
It could be
but
Lucas.
It could be
actually.
Lucas. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, totally. Right. So Rose is here. Hey there, Rose.
Oh, hey, Rose. What's happening? Good to see you.
Yeah, for sure.
We can't wait. What is the PK saying? We can't hear you when you guys are 3 feet away from those mics. Is that a joke or is that, I don't know.
I think if people had issues with the audio, they would tell us.
Okay, cool.
So I don't know.
All right.
That's funny, interpreting these comments on the fly.
Yeah.
Hey, Amy. Nice to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
Brianna's here.
Howdy.
Oh, what's up, Benjamin?
Oh, hail, Ben. How's it going, my man?
Always good to see Balderson in the house. Yeah, he's saying right here, well, this is one hell of a chat crew.
I would
totally
agree.
Yep. Michelle is here.
What's up?
Hey there.
Always thinking of Mullen when I see your name.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, the audio's fine.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. So, as per usual, we have both chosen a topic, and we are going to talk about that topic, and we're going to roll this dice right here to determine who goes first.
Yes.
So, you should go first.
Okay.
Yeah. So, whoever gets the highest roll.
Highest
Oh,
roll.
so last time,
Okay.
I thought we could maybe make a game out of this for the chat.
Oh, okay. Let's do it. That makes it fun.
Who do you guys think is going to get the highest roll? Am I going to go first? Is Michelle going to go first? It's almost more of a divination sort of game.
No, totally. And let's just say Mario has gone first the last 2 weeks. I think you've rolled the highest
Right.
last 2 weeks in a row. So
Right. Just throwing that out there.
just throwing it out there.
Right. So, anyways, we'll see who is going first. I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Hey, Sarah. Nice to see you.
Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Brain Cave. I don't know if
What's up?
I've seen a Brain Cave around here before.
I haven't either. Welcome.
That's cool.
Welcome to
Interesting
last
name.
Thursday.
Okay, Kabir is saying Michelle wins. Oh, whoa. Hank is saying Mario with a 5.
Ooh, I like this.
Okay, so Rose is saying I'm going to go with Michelle because she's holding a magical drink.
Okay.
Awesome. Interesting. Michelle first is what Brain Cave is saying.
All right. Embroidered
So-
on a hypothetical red baseball hat.
Hey, Mary. Nice to see you. Artist Seer.
What's happening?
Mary, who do you think is going to get the roll? Do you think Michelle's going to get the higher number or myself? So just curious. And then once we have that, then we'll roll.
Yeah, okay, once we hear from Miri, but she might get distracted and not answer. So
That's true. So All right. If I don't see an answer within the next 2 seconds,
Okay.
1,000.
I do like the idea of incorporating the chat in this one just to see what they think's going to happen and go down.
Cool. All righty. I think we're good.
All right. Yeah, we can roll. All right. Big money, big money, big money.
Maybe one day we'll have like a dice cam and everything. Who
That'd be
knows?
cool. We should get a dice cup.
Okay. Artist seer, Miri
right.
Saint Michelle.
Okay.
Oh, she got it too.
I got it too.
So.
All right. Well, I know it's possible.
Oh, Hank was right, dude. I got a 5.
Oh, snap.
That's interesting.
All right. There's some juju there.
Whoa.
Okay.
Flat Earth hippie is on it.
Oh my God.
It's all that hair. He's super psychic.
Yeah, and that beard. That's
Right.
true. I know. We should get a dice cup, man, because that reminds me of what was it called? Chase the Ace.
Okay.
My family used to play that when I was little.
Right.
And I can hear the sound of the dice and the dice cup slamming on the counter.
Right.
like,
Nice.
As I think about that. Anyway.
So we've done divination stuff with Miri. I don't know if with Hank as well, but that could be totally a topic at some point. Remote viewing and just like techniques to increase your remote viewing abilities. And there's a group of people that we've hung out with and still see and hang out with. But we haven't done that activity in a long time, where we used to try and predict like what was in the envelope, a photo or something like that. And some people's guesses or hunches or intuitions were like freakishly accurate.
Oh yeah, and I can just remember I have such fond memories of those gatherings, and they were at Miri's house, and this was like 3 years ago now, maybe 4 even. Gosh,
Right.
Wow, time flies. But yeah, no, we would have some really epic predictions in there, people getting almost spot on with the images in the envelope.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love the remote viewing when you're doing it like that in a group too, because I love that the whole thing of it is like nothing is off the table in your mind. So like you have this envelope and it's one envelope obviously, and you might have a group of 5 people or something, but it's just like the whole rule of it, I guess, or technique of it is that writing down anything that comes to your mind.
Yes.
Even if you think that it's like way like strange or weird or whatever, and that's when it's the most accurate. It's when you do that, when you're just like sitting there, eyes closed, you're like thinking about what might be in the envelope, and Apple pops up, and you might think, "Oh, that's random," but you should write it down, because
Right.
9 times out of 10, those ones, when they pop up and it seems so random, were always the ones that were closest to, if not the actual thing that was in the envelope.
It's totally true. That's one of the things that we ultimately learned, which I know that's kind of put out there for people who are learning remote viewing.
Yeah.
Is just even if it seems completely backwards or random, you should draw it or write it down, because so many times too, people were like, "Oh man, that popped into my head, but I didn't even write it because I thought it was too strange and too random."
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, that could be something that we could do for people. Maybe we could come up, get a photo, put it in an envelope, ask people at some point, like, what do you guys think it is? Any hunches? Put it in the chat. And then we could see if anyone gets anything.
That'd be a great one. We should like do that
We should
next
totally
week.
do that. Yeah.
Let's
that
just
sounds
plan
fun.
on it.
By the way, just want to say, because we haven't done this in a little while, we do have a Telegram. And so if you guys are, I don't know, if you guys want to leave a little voicemail or note for us that you want us to play, by the end of the stream, we'll check it out.
Yeah.
And if anything, maybe just try and keep it under like a minute or 2.
Yeah. That's a good rule.
Yeah. So because we talk about so many things, you guys have brilliant insights. If you have anything you really want to share with us, we don't mind playing it.
For sure.
Cool. So with all that said, I'm going to get my notes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Oh yeah, that lilac is totally coming through in the lemonade. That's awesome. I think too, part of it is like you get the scent of it as well, and so scent and taste go hand in hand.
Yes, indeed. All right. So I'm going to do an update on some recent revelations, insights, and research that I've gotten regarding the Polestar.
Okay.
And so probably most people here know that is my jam. I love polar symbolism, northern symbolism, things related to the northern sky, things related to the North Star. And because this is like my active rabbit hole and has been for years, I just continually pick things up when I'm reading other sources that aren't even necessarily talking about it, but they allude to something that I feel like fits with, something else that I've read. Also, there are books that I'm reading currently right now. Like right now, I'm reading Kenneth Grant's Night Side of Eden, and I am diving into this because I was invited to do a show on the Juan on Juan podcast. Shout out Juan. And we're going to be talking about the Tunnels of Set. We're going to be talking about Kenneth Grant. We're going to be talking about the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. And he knows I have an interest in some of this material. And so because he asked, I'm just like going in headfirst into that rabbit hole. So it's next week on Wednesday. We're going to go live and talk about it. And the reason why I chose specifically The Night Side of Eden by Kenneth Grant to read, because he goes, we can talk about Kenneth Grant and we can basically go in any direction. So if there's a book that you're interested in, let's just choose a book so then he can read it too, and then we're on the same page with the material. And then I already knew ahead of time that this is the book I want to read. So this is the first book I'm reading by this guy, by the way, just for clarification purposes. It came out in the 70s. And Kenneth Grant, one of the reasons why he is an influential occultist. And by the way, all of these people, I just have to say, like, complete, like, full disclosure with all of this stuff is that a lot of these people are more so characters of interest for me versus me being like a follower of their work.
Right.
Especially when it comes to occultism and stuff. A lot of these figures, you don't really know what their actual story is. What kind of activities were they really up to? Who were they really hanging out with? All of these types of things. I think it's worth being incredibly skeptical of all these people. And so just wanted to put that out there, that I read a lot of material by different authors because I want to know what's going on. And I want to know about, I guess, the history of occultism and things like that. But I don't necessarily subscribe to, the way they look at the world. I don't necessarily, I don't practice any of their stuff or whatever. So I'm very much an observer with a lot of this kind of information, right?
Yeah.
And so Kenneth Grant, he's definitely one of those guys where I'm like, I'm an observer of his information now. And his claim to fame is that he synthesized the world of Crowley. He advanced it. But he also integrated a lot of Lovecraftian mythos elements into his ritual workings and stuff. And so he synthesized Crowley and Lovecraft pretty much. And so he had a reverence for Lovecraft. He had a reverence for Crowley. And with Lovecraft, he basically thought, and he's not alone, there's a lot of people who think this, that Lovecraft created a pantheon for the modern world. And even I was just watching something with Thomas Sheridan the other day.
Oh, nice.
And he was saying that basically he thinks that the Lovecraftian mythos is going to be the new pagan religion of the West.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. And
well,
so,
it kind of already is.
That's what he was saying.
In a way,
exactly. It already is.
Yeah.
And so, so there's a lot of stuff to be said about all of that. The reason why, and some of this stuff I'm kind of repeating myself depending on who's watching, but I was interested in Lovecraft because I found out that there's Northern symbolism baked into the mythology, which I was unaware of. He makes references to Polaris, the pole star. He has a lot of things in his material that it alludes to the North. And when I found out that Cthulhu, as an example, that some people think Cthulhu could be considered like a Northern deity and has a correspondence with Set, I was interested. I'm like, okay, I need to know more about all of this. But the main thing is that a lot of people think that Lovecraft created a mythology that's so sound that you can actually use it ritualistically. You can actually use it the same way people have used the Egyptian gods, as an example. So, all of these deities, when we look at history, it's like the Egyptians had their pantheon, and the Greeks and the Romans had their pantheon, all, around the world. I don't have to go through all of them, but like around
Right.
the world, these different cultures have their pantheons that spoke to them at the time. So at a certain point in time, these gods and stuff, they really resonated with these people because it made sense with their psychology, with their cultural perspective, how they grew up, all this kind of stuff. It's like it made sense to them, right? The same way today, for a lot of people, Christ makes sense, as a deity. And so a lot of people think that the deities, the ancient ones or old ones of the Lovecraftian mythos, that those figures are going to be the new pantheon, that it's already happening pretty much. And so Kenneth Grant was all about it. And so he started recommending that people, in his network, which is like the OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, he started recommending to people that if you really want to advance your rituals and your various workings, that kind of sprinkling in some Lovecraftian lore and mythology is kind of the way to go, and this is what he recommended. So that's partly what Night Side of Eden is about. Night Side of Eden is a lot having to do with the inverse tree of life. So this is known as the clip-off. So this is the dark side of the tree of life. You can look at it as the roots of the tree of life, right? And so the whole thing is that, there's no light without dark, right? You can't have just one side to a coin. Magnetism requires a polarity. You need north and south, or positive and negative, right? So this is the deal, is that polarity exists. So you can't have one without the other. You can't have life without death, okay? And so it's really interesting that the way to access the Clipothic tree of death, it's sometimes called, is to access it via a very specific Sephiroth, which is called Doth, which is related to death. Okay, and sometimes, depending on the map you're looking at, the Kabbalistic Tree of Life map that you're looking at, Doth isn't even there. And so, but it's in the middle pillar of the Tree of Life. And so that's very important. Its relationship with literally death is very important, because you could call it the Tree of Death. You access the Tree of Death via Doth. Well, it's funny because he's talking about the fact that Doth is related to the North as well. And so, and there's all of this symbolism related to the North, the northern sky, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, the North Star, etc. So there's a whole entire current that basically acknowledges the North as a gateway of sorts to this inverse tree, right? So I will get into that. But there's a few other things that I want to get into before I kind of dive into more of this material. So I'm just kind of laying a groundwork, basically, right? But I thought it was really interesting that I gave a presentation last week on Friday, which if you haven't seen it, check it out if you're interested. But I did a presentation, 3 hours, on the Hierophant card. So I talked about the Hierophant card for 3 hours, and I went through all of my cards. And one of the things I talked about was the fact that the Hierophant corresponds with the Hebrew alphabet with Vav, which means nail. And so I was looking into nail symbolism and what it's all about. And I knew plenty of stuff about the nail and what it represents. The things that I, was kind of recognizing or immediately knew off the top of my head was the nail binds things together. And so the nail binds things together. So in that way, it acts as a symbolic bridge as well between two items, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what the Hierophant represents. The Hierophant is like a bridge between the higher and the lower. So it's a bridge between the people and God, basically. So he's kind of like a mediator sort of thing. And he has keys to communicate with both sides, basically. And that's why you always see keys on the Hierophant card itself. You usually see cross keys at his feet. So usually a silver key and a golden key at his feet. And so even like a gate with a lock, that's kind of symbolic of, a connecting point between two places, between inner and outer, between two locations, two pieces of land, or whatever, And so everything about the Hierophant suggests that he is a mediator, that he is in between the above and the below. This corresponds with the number 5 because it appears as though number 5 is kind of like a transcendental number, that it exists between the 0 and the 10 on our base 10 system, or the 1 and the 10. So it is a number that exists. Another way of looking at it would be between the spiritual domain and the physical domain, or the material domain. And so it's in between these places, the number 5. We have 5 fingers, 5 appendages, the number 5 relates to the pentacle and all these other things. But the nail, in a lot of ways, kind of represents a lot of similar symbolism, pretty much. And so when I was looking into the nail symbolically, I was listening to some rabbis talk about it, and they're talking about all of these things that just reminded me of Northern symbolism. And it reminded me of the world axis, or the cosmic axis. The cosmic axis, its main symbol would just be a vertical line. So it would be a pole, right? Or it would be the trunk of a tree. We're talking about the tree of life here, right? And so a tree is the bridge between the higher and lower as well, between the lower and higher. So I've been saying this, right? But the tree, all plants that shoot up like that, they're all bridges to heaven, right? Reminds me of Jack and the Beanstalk,
right?
That way,
right?
So the tree is symbolic of this connection between lower and higher, but symbolically, like the world axis, there is also a separation between the lower and the higher as well. And so, world axis symbolism relates to the bridge. It relates to the ladder, like Jacob's ladder. So all of this stuff is part of, it's the same, sort of soup or whatever, in my opinion. I see correspondences between all of these different things: the tower, the building, the tree, even like the world mountain, things like that. It's all basically, all of the symbolism suggests that this is a means to connect the above and the below. And so when you see the magician, like in the magician card, and he's holding up that wand, he's holding up a symbol of the world axis, basically, which is the cosmic axis. It's all the same symbolism. The penis, the spine, it's similar symbolism, in my opinion. It's a huge symbolic key to understanding the realm we live in. And so these rabbis were talking about Vav, the nail, being this binding thing, being this connecting sort of thing that bridges the gap between two things and sticks them together, right? That's what nails do. 2 pieces of wood or whatever. And then the nail itself just looks like, a little pillar or a little post, something like that. Same symbolism. And so I thought that was all really interesting. And I'm like, the nail to me is just another example of of a world axis symbol. It's the same thing that I'm seeing everywhere else with all of my research and stuff. And literally right after the stream, I was reading a book that I'm diving into because of the Juan show, and it says that another name for Polaris is the sky nail.
Whoa.
Or the nail star.
Wow.
That there are cultures that consider Polaris, the pole star, to be the nail star or sky nail. And so it makes me think of like the hub of a wheel.
Right.
It makes me think of like a pinwheel.
That's what, yeah.
You know how you can just stick a pin in something and then you can spin it around?
Which in the pinwheel would make sense with Ursa Major Minor going around it. So
yeah,
it's like that's actually like the petals or the,
Exactly.
Whoa.
So it's a sky nail. So when you have one thing nailed to another thing, you can spin it, right?
Yeah.
Depending on its design or whatever. But if you have 2 boards, you can spin it, And so if you have a second nail, though, then it's going to be fixed.
Right.
But that one nail is symbolic of the hub of the wheel, that point of pivot in the heavens, which is Polaris, the North Star. Okay, so that's why it's related to being a sky nail or the nail star. And so I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, dude, this is incredible, because to me, the Hierophant, since he is this kind of mediator between realms or whatever, he's very much related to Mercury. Mercury is a traveler. So Mercury goes between these domains as well. And it's interesting, too, because the Hierophant corresponds with Taurus. Think of the Taurus symbol. All you have to do is add a cross right underneath, and you have the symbol for Mercury.
Right.
So even Taurus symbolism is related to Mercury as well. I think everything is probably related to Mercury in some way, shape, or form. And so Mercury seems to be this shape shifting sort of deity, right? And so he goes all over the place, and he's masculine and feminine. So he can be masculine, he can be feminine, he can be, in between. He's a traveler, so he sees lots of things. You almost think of like a traveler of, travelers are kind of known for understanding lots of different cultures because they travel.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not uncommon, excuse me, for a lot of older travelers who are like really serious to know like multiple languages.
Right, right.
That's just like what you end up doing.
Yeah.
Is you start learning people's languages and customs and cultures and things like that, and you start bringing all of that information into your fold, right? And so the Hierophant is a high priest. He always sits in between the two pillars, too. That's a common thing with the Hierophant.
Right.
So he represents that central pillar. So just like in the Tree of Life, that central pillar goes above and below the other two pillars, right? And so to me, the main thing that I've been saying for a while now is that Mercury uses the world axis, the cosmic axis, this Jacob's ladder sort of concept, this tower sort of concept, or this world mountain concept, that he uses this central location to traverse and travel between realms and domains. This is what I've been saying for a while now. And a lot of people in some magical circles, basically they have that completely encoded in their work, is that there's a certain understanding with certain magical groups that the northern sky bridge, the bridge to heaven, the stairway to heaven, is actually literally a real thing, and that people for a very long time have used this central gateway as a means to go to other planes and other places, right? And so that's partly what I'm picking up from this material too, this Kenneth Grant material, is that they understand a lot of this stuff, but they have a different way of phrasing it. So you have to kind of make correspondences, and you have to, in certain ways, not even necessarily read between the lines, but a lot of my previous research with Northern symbolism and this gateway idea at the North is really, really becoming extremely helpful in understanding the information that I'm reading about right now.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. The Hierophant, the Sky Nail, the Nail Star, all that kind of stuff. Very, very interesting that corresponds with the Hierophant card. That it corresponds with the 5th card of the Major Arcana, the number 5 being, again, this number that exists between the material world and spiritual world. That's why it's encoded in so much sacred geometry. That's why there's a relationship with the number 5 and what's called the golden ratio or golden mean, and the golden spiral and the spiral of life, And so all of these ideas are completely related to each other, and it's blowing my mind right now as well, But I wanted to mention that. So a few of the other things that I'm picking up right now. And so I think some of this information might be really helpful for people who might have been following my work for a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And so if you've seen my presentations about some of this stuff, I think that this is going to be extra juicy for those people, I would say. But one of the things that I've been learning about that I think is fascinating is that a lot of people, instead of, my thing is about the North Star. So my thing is about trying to understand its place in history, in mythology, in spirituality, in occultism. And a lot of times people will bring up Sirius, right? The dog star. And they'll say like, well, I've always heard that it's Sirius, or that the Freemasons worship Sirius, or that, whatever, all these various myths might actually be about Sirius, not the North Star. But one of the things that I've picked up, I would say probably over the last 6 months especially, is that in the Typhonian occult tradition, which basically Typhon is the primordial mother, kind of like a primordial dark mother. And she's considered to be more feminine. And there has been Typhonian cults for a long time, but it's just gone by different names over the ages. But the idea is that this mother gave birth to a child. And a lot of Typhonian occultists basically say that Typhon exists in the north, and they make her out to be the correspondence with Ursa Major.
Okay.
So the 7 stars of Ursa Major. And they say that she exists in the north, and I think one of the correspondences with her in the Egyptian pantheon is the hippopotamus goddess, Terawet. And so the hippopotamus goddess, she's a really interesting figure, but she looks over like childbirth, and she's like a protector of the home and things like that. She oftentimes is holding a knife, I believe. Sometimes she has a crocodile behind her. And so a lot of these creatures that are like reptilian or like watery creatures have been associated with the underworld. Okay.
This is really cool, I just have to say.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah, well, it's always cool hearing all this stuff, but yeah, I'm liking where you're going.
Nice.
Yeah.
So a lot of older deities that were reptilian, underwater creatures, like the hippopotamus or the alligator, they were actually looked at as being feminine. And so the idea behind a lot of these occultists is that they believe that there was a feminine primordial goddess, and that she gave birth. She had no counterpart. In a lot of ways, it's like an older version of the Sophia Demiurge story.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
It's very, very similar, that there's a primordial older goddess associated with darkness in the best of ways. Life grows in the dark. You plant a seed underground.
Right.
And then the womb is dark.
Right.
It's hidden. The woman is veiled. Veil symbolism relates to Virgo and a million other things. But there's this idea that the first creation was a feminine goddess, and that she had no male counterpart, but that she birthed the first male counterpart. And in this tradition, the Tunnels of Set tradition, her first child is Set. And so he's like a chaos god. He's like a really, really old chaos god. But he has a mother. So there's a god above him even, right? That's more ancient and all this other kind of stuff. And so part of the symbolism that I'm picking up is that they say that Set exists behind Ursa Major. That's one of the symbolism threads that I'm following. That Set exists behind Ursa Major, which circles around Polaris in the night sky, right? Conversely, it's also said, and I'm still unpacking a lot of this information, but it's also said that he is actually Sirius, and that Sirius is a child of Ursa Major, basically. That Sirius is considered the 8th star of Ursa Major.
Whoa. That
Ursa Major has 7 stars. Ursa Minor has 7 stars. The tip of the handle is Polaris, is the North Star. In my opinion, it's very clear that now that the swastika comes from the Ursa Major revolving around the pole star.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which just makes total sense for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
7 stars, and I've made videos and done presentations on it as well.
Which also makes a lot of sense why many cultures, use that symbol in high regard.
Even we met up with Miri and Hank, and Miri's looking into like Chinese astrology stuff.
Oh yeah, and it's all up in the books and everything.
Yeah, and it literally just shows. Oh yeah, no, totally. Ursa Major around the pole star. This is where we get the swastika from.
Right.
And so the mother that was associated with Ursa Major, which by the way, this gets into other information, that Ursa Major, we just call it the Great Bear and Little Bear.
Uh-huh.
It's a mother bear.
Oh, well, that makes sense. The Great Mother.
Yeah, it's a great mother bear, actually.
Right.
And so it's a great mother bear, and one of her children is Sirius. And they attribute Sirius with Set as well. And so when people bring up Sirius and they're saying, oh, well, the Freemasons are into Sirius, or this group acknowledges Sirius. There's lots of books about Sirius. Sirius is a brilliant star. I mean, all you have to do is look at it too. Mm-hmm. And it exists in a really, really powerful portion of the night sky as well. There's like my favorite part of the night sky, honestly, is looking at the Pleiades, which is within Taurus, but like to the upper right of Taurus. And then you see Taurus itself, and you see Aldebaran, right? And then you go further down and you're eventually going to see Sirius as well. So there's like a very powerful line in the night sky with all of these things kind of going on. And so if there are cultures that revere Sirius, I'm not saying all of these groups have an understanding of this, but I'm saying in the deep occult world, from what I'm picking up, they have an understanding that Sirius is just a child of Ursa Major. So there, and that there are
Isn't Sirius the dog star?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I thought.
totally. But that there's a complete relationship between Ursa Major and Sirius. So if Sirius is revered, the symbolism is, well, where did Sirius come from? You know, does it have a parent or whatever? And it's like, yes, it does have a parent, and its mother is Ursa Major. That's what I'm picking up from the mythology right now. And he's actually pretty clear about it as well. And I've read other material that said literally the exact same thing. So this is my first time talking about it, but I think there's a very interesting hidden thread. It's veiled information that links Sirius with Ursa Major.
Okay.
So that's one thing that I just wanted to get off my chest, which I think is really interesting. Also, it's just really fascinating to me that there's so many connections with a lot of known occultists with veiled references to the North Star in their material and all this other stuff. So, as an example, there's a guy named Stephen Flowers. So he also goes by Edred Thorson or Thorenson, something along those lines. I've read a couple of his books. He's kind of controversial, as are a lot of these people, you know, but I brought up the fact to one of our friends, shout out Steve, that Polaris, one of the alternative names for Polaris, is the lodestar. And the lodestar is a reference to the lodestone, which is a supposed that this is the mythology, is what I'll say. That the lodestone, that there's a tradition associating the lodestone with being the magnetic stone at the center of the plane, at the north. And so this has a correspondence with the North Star, right? And so the North Star being called the lodestar is a reference to the lodestone. Okay. And so, which I think has a correspondence to as well with the Philosopher's Stone as well, and potentially the Black Stone. And so, anyways, I brought this up to Steve, and Steve was like, "Oh, well, that's kind of interesting because Stephen Flowers, he has a publication company called Lodestar Books, and all of the books are sailing based.
Oh, whoa.
It has to do with sailing and ships and navigation and stuff like that." It's like, well, that makes a lot of sense because the primary star of navigation for these sailors was the North Star.
Right.
You know, that if you knew where the North Star was and how to locate it, like you knew what direction at the very least you were sailing.
Right.
So the North Star is the preeminent navigational star in the heavens. Okay. And so to me, North Star symbolism appears to me to be old world symbolism, which is why most people don't understand it anymore.
Right.
And which is why it's kind of glossed over, or they don't understand the power of it. You know, that it's literally the point in which the heavens revolve around. And guess what? It's the heavens that are revolving and not us.
Right.
That's what it appears to me, at least.
Yeah.
So the significance of the North Star takes on just a lot of power, and there's a lot of stuff going on with it when you take into account that we probably live in a geocentric reality.
Right.
So if you live in a heliocentric mindset or framework or perspective or whatever, the North Star is not as interesting or powerful.
Right.
You know, everything becomes about the sun,
right,
and the solar system. But as I've been saying, I think that we probably live in a polar system over a solar system, as in the North Pole, North Star, Pole Star sort of world axis thing. It's the cosmic axis. So that was another thing I wanted to mention. Let me see what else I wanted to bring up. What were you thinking about with the hippopotamus goddess and stuff? Was there anything that you wanted to bring up?
There's a connection with this stuff with what I'm going to be talking about.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, I think it's funny. There's a weave here.
There is.
Yeah, we've picked up on something.
Right. So one of the things that this reminds me of is that my understanding, according to the Night Side of Eden material that I'm getting into, is that one of the reasons why these older goddesses have basically been smeared and tarnished and been devalued is because they symbolically are godless.
Aha. Okay, because they are the goddess.
because there was no god before them,
Right.
because they are the original essence.
Right.
They're the primordial goddess. So they had no male counterpart. And so that has been used against them as well, right? And so I think that's really interesting too. So there has been a flip. There's been a total flip, and I would say even Taurus season is part of this as well. Most people, when they think of Taurus, they think of the bull. And when you think of the bull, you think of an aggressive animal, ready to stampede or whatever. You think of bullfighting and stuff. It used to be a cow. It used to be a feminine cow. Taurus is ruled by Venus.
Right.
So how much sense does it make for Taurus to be masculine over feminine? It probably makes more sense for it to be more feminine in nature, I would say. So I would say that there have been multiple myths and deities that were once related to the sacred feminine that over time were related to now the masculine, basically. As an example, one of the things that I have right here that I just read was the idea that Mars, same thing with Mars. When people think of Mars, they think of the warring planet, violence and bloodshed and all this kind of stuff. There's a beautiful aspect to Mars having to do with its energetic quality. It's a doer. And we also need the destructive energy too.
Mm-hmm.
In order to make a meal, you're gonna probably have to get raw food somehow, somewhere, and in order to create that the destructive element needs to be somehow part of the mix. The first act of the creative process is destruction. So if you're going to build a house, you need raw materials, as an example, right? And so in the book, it was saying that, and this is all just food for thought, guys, but in the book, it was saying that Mars actually used to be related to the sacred feminine. And that it actually was more so related to sexuality and also menstrual blood.
That makes sense to me.
And just the blood of life, basically.
Right.
And so isn't it interesting? Mars, and then MAR, and then we have Mary, right? And we have all of these words that are MAR that are actually feminine. And when you get into Mars symbolism, you're going to find feminine symbolism. And so apparently this is another inversion, that Mars used to be more so related to the sacred feminine, apparently. And apparently there's myths that involve menstruation and Tuesday, that Eve started her period on a Tuesday. That's the day of Mars.
Ah.
And look at blood and everything that it encodes and how important and sacred it actually really is. So now we just look at Mars as, again, blood shed. But what about like the power of blood? And then if you're going to talk about the power of blood, you have to talk about the blood of the moon. You have to talk about a woman's cycle.
Right.
And the power of that, and how that in and of itself too, which I've been talking about because of Aries season, is related to sacrifice. Women are born with all the eggs they're ever going to have. And then literally every single month she sheds part of her uterine wall, and she dispenses of an egg,
Right.
and she goes through that whole cycle, right? That's a sacrificial sort of thing symbolically,
It is, yeah.
I would say, in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a necessary sacrifice.
Right.
Right. And so it's a necessary sacrifice in order for life to occur, and all that kind of stuff. So to me, thinking about Mars as being potentially feminine is pretty interesting. And I'm kind of curious, obviously, to read more, but to see if, what other inversions are kind of out there. Another thing, too, because the Great Bear, Ursa Major, was looked at as being feminine. So this is the big correspondence, is that the circumpolar constellations in the northern sky around Polaris, they're always there. So they've been referred to as the eternal stars or the imperishable stars. And compared to other stars, you're not going to see them move as quickly, basically. The same way, because of Saturn's revolution, because of Saturn's transit, that it moves much slower than the planets that are closer in, right? And so therefore Saturn is looked at as being slow. It is slow. It takes 27 years or whatever,
Right,
to do one full revolution. And so but Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, because they're in the northern part of the sky, because they're always present, there's this perception that they don't move very fast. and bears too. You know, bears aren't known for their speed, although they can move really fucking fast, right? And so bears aren't necessarily known for their speed. So these constellations in the northern sky, the church actually devalued them as well by saying that they're slow and that they're lazy. Think of Teruet, the hippopotamus goddess. She's a big hippopotamus woman, and one of the
Right.
things is that she has saggy breasts. I don't know if you've ever noticed that.
Yeah.
But she has big saggy breasts, and so
Uh-oh.
watch out, everybody. But to me, it's just really interesting that there has been a whole lineage of like goddess archetypal figures that are more voluptuous, bigger, you know. And this, it's been said, is one of the reasons why these constellations and these goddesses have been kind of smeared and stuff. That's been one of the things used against them.
Okay.
So as an example, what I heard in one of my northern symbolism books, it was saying that the Celestial Ship of the North says this. It was saying that the church promoted people to worship the sun because it was faster.
Wow. That makes sense. I mean, look at our society.
So they said the sun is brilliant, it's radiant, it's faster. You know, look at it go through the night sky every single day versus the pole star or Polaris or these circumpolar constellations. They're always there. They're consistently there. So this is part of the symbolism that a lot of these occult guys, they've acknowledged over the years, and I don't know where the real genesis of any of the stuff is. I think it goes really, really, really far back. The one of the symbolic threads is that a lot of the gods of the modern world are just that. They're modern.
Right.
And so they're new. So they even say that even the planetary gods, that they're it's a newer class of deity. When you're actually revering, say, the North Star and the circumpolar constellations, you're actually revering an older class of deity, an older, wiser deity. This is why the North Star has also been associated with God, that it's omnipresent. It's always there, you know, the North Star. And so night after night after night, it's going to be in the exact same place, basically, versus all of the other stars in the night sky, literally, and versus all of the wandering planets and everything else. So there's like a permanence that corresponds with the North. There's this ancient sort of idea that corresponds with the North. And the gateway to access the dark side of the Tree of Life, it is said, literally is at the North, via Doth, the Sephiroth. And so there is an underworld correspondence with the northern sky as well. So even though I've talked about a lot of stuff having to do with Eden or paradise, there's equally as many symbols and threads relating the north and the northern sky with Eden and paradise as there are with it being related to the underworld.
Makes sense to me, especially if it is the stairway to heaven and this is like where we go upon death.
It's an as above so below thing.
Right.
So there's material out there where you can read it all day long. Garden of Eden existed at the north in the center of the plain. It's paradise, blah, blah, blah. And then you could also read the exact opposite being true. And that's what these black magical guys have tapped into, is that you're actually dealing with the underworld.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And underworld symbolism. So, yeah. So that's part of the thing, that it's the primal darkness of the north is what Doth relates to. And so if you want to access these tunnels of Set, which is, again, the inversion of the Tree of Life. So let's see what else is going on here. Yeah, just reading about stuff related to the floodwaters coming from the north as well, which I think is really interesting. And then I've pretty much mentioned, I think, most of the stuff that I wanted to get off my chest. So, I mean, there's a couple of little notes here. Do you think there's anything that I need to like tie up or wrap up or anything that's confusing? You hear me talk about this stuff all the time, so.
Yeah.
But do you think from the perspective of a listener, is there anything that I need to kind of clarify?
Ask the chat.
Ooh. Oh, yeah, that's right. We're on a podcast.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so. You were kind of getting some of the recent research off of your chest, so.
Right. Okay, I'll go over a couple more notes that I have here.
Okay.
I'm just wondering. Sometimes I get concerned with what rabbit holes to open, because then I have to complete them and see them out, you know? So one of the things that I've been thinking about that's really interesting is I'll go with this idea. So I personally think that there are a lot of groups that have their own idea of the origin of humanity. So if you go to China, there's going to be people in China that are going to point to specific parts of their country and say, nope, this is where the origin of humanity is. There's going to be people who point to Africa and they're going to say, nope, this is where the origin of humanity is. There's going to be people who say it's the North. You know, the Box saga gets into fucking Helsinki being the center of everything. Old World Florida, Longo, he talks about, Florida being the center of Atlantis, basically. You know, Dylan Secosio, he gets into Italy being a very big thing, and that it was kind of like this one of these seeds of origin, right, for people. And so there are so many claims about Atlantis, and there are so many claims about paradise, and there's so many claims about the Garden of Eden. It'll make your head spin. You can literally, I remember going to Powell's one time. For those of you guys who don't know, Powell's is like a huge bookstore in Portland. And they had a whole Atlantis section. You know,
I believe it.
They had a whole Atlantis section. And I'm like, wow, here's literally dozens of books that claim that they know, these authors claim that they know where the center of Atlantis was. And so there's traditions based on it existing in certain places. And there's lots of schools of thought of Atlantis. What I think is that a people that is healthy, a people that has a tradition, they're probably going to have their own claim about the origin of humanity because they're proud.
Well, yeah.
They're proud. And there's multiple generations that grew up in this country or in this village or whatever. And so they might develop their own mythology and say, hey, it's actually right here. Who cares what anyone else thinks? We know that it's right here. We know that it's with our sacred tree, at our sacred tree, or we know that it was at the sacred mountain or whatever. You know, there's lots of different sort of takes on all of this. Now, when people do that, you're referring to a sacred center. So to me, the main sacred center here would be the cosmic axis as it relates to the pole star and the North Pole, because I think it's probably the center of the cosmos as well. That when I say world axis, I also mean cosmic axis. When I say world tree, I also mean the cosmic tree. And so there is a center to this plane. There is a center to this torus field. And so it would make sense that everything that came from that center is going to kind of be like a microcosm, or it's going to be a fractal of that original center. So it would make sense that groups around the world might be really proud of where they're from and where they grew up. And so they're going to say, no, our sacred center is right here. It's in our backyard. It's in this country. I'll show you, you know, and they might have mythologies to back it up, and they might have symbolism to back it up of, oh yeah, no, this is where this deity was born, and this is where all these things happened, and blah, blah, blah. It plays a big part in their mythology. Okay. And so that's why I think that there's so many different interpretations of where the origin of humanity is, or maybe where Atlantis is. I think we're talking about the same thing. I think Atlantean symbolism is pretty much a reference to this sacred center symbolism. And so I think people get it twisted when they're trying to find the real Atlantis. You know, I don't think it necessarily worked that way. I could be completely wrong, but I just think that it's actually at the Atlantean myth is mirroring a much older sort of correspondence that can be found all over the place, because there's so many groups that have a sacred center location that they revere and honor and worship. Okay. Now, the two people I've heard over the last 6 months, and I haven't absorbed or digested all of their work, so I can't say that, but I've heard Dylan Secosio talk a lot about Italy being one of these core locations. And then I've heard Longo from Old World Florida talk about Florida being one of these core locations.
Okay.
Now, I think it's interesting that Florida is a peninsula and Italy is also a peninsula.
Ah.
Because I don't think Dylan's wrong with a lot of his stuff. And I don't think Longo's wrong with a lot of his stuff. And so I'm like, they're tapping into something. But I'm like, but I think what the deal may have been is that potentially Florida as a peninsula And Italy as a peninsula may have been revered because they're peninsulas.
Right. So it's
Which
not just that, it's not necessarily meaning that that's the origin of everything.
I
It's just that it's an origin, it's an important origin because of its land
what
shape.
what is a peninsula? It looks like a phallus.
Right.
So to me, this corresponds with a lot of the polar symbolism that I've gotten into. That it would kind of make sense that a peninsula would be revered. It kind of makes sense that a peninsula, because it's surrounded by water, would be a place that people wanted to congregate at and was kind of like a big deal in history. And so it makes me wonder if choosing a peninsula and having a reverence for this location, if somehow that kind of taps into some of the polar symbolism stuff that I've unpacked over the last year or something. So potentially there's like a reverence to peninsulas, and I'm wondering if there's maybe other locations that are peninsulas that have some of these, similar stories, basically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's very possible,
Yeah.
I think.
So anyways, just something I wanted to throw out there.
Nice.
So, okay. I think that's it, because I think I got most of the main stuff off my chest, and that was pretty good. So
Yeah.
it's like 7. Not that I'm really keeping track of time, guys, but I just wanted to see it that I got some of these notes clarified, and yeah, that's more of the important stuff.
Nice. I mean, it's always an interesting weave. There's more and more that continues to come up with it.
It's always really funny too. It's like when you have notes and then you actually start talking about it, how the flow feels different. And so my notes were like, oh, I'm going to talk about this, this, and this, and this. And then I start talking about it. I'm like, oh, well, I'd rather bring this up, and I'd rather talk about this and whatever. But
Right.
I think you guys got the idea with most everything.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, I'm going to read the chat because
Okay.
I said a lot. I'm sure you guys have comments and all that kind of stuff. All right, let's see. Okay, this is way earlier on, but Ben was saying I can't say anything in under a minute.
Nice.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, Brianna. So she's asking polar symbolism. What's that all about? That's cute. The little bear and the snowflake. I would watch What is Northern Symbolism on my YouTube channel if you haven't seen that yet. It's kind of my most concise little breakdown of that material I could make. And then I have other live streams and stuff you can check out if you're interested. All right. Oh yeah, cool. King of Cups. He said that he checked out that video that I referenced earlier. I sent it to him. Yeah, Ben saying the circumcision of the tree. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. PK saying that's interesting about accessing the other tree from Doth. Daath. It's Daath is usually how it's spelled, but I get it. Reminds me of it being a third shape, the two trees connected by Doth on the inside. Nice. Cool. Yep, the rotating sky above. Okay, Elsie King is saying it's also called the Golden Nail. Nice. I haven't heard that reference. Yeah, a lot of people talking about Mercury. When I was discussing it earlier, all is Mercury. Mercury is water in the 5 elements. That's interesting. So Liam's asking what the drink was tonight. Lemonade, but fancy lemonade because she made it.
Lilac, lemon balm, lemonade.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So some Aboriginals say the first person was a woman who came in as Black Obsidian.
Ooh.
That lines up exactly with some of the stuff I'm talking about. And the animals all gave her pieces of themselves to make her body. Oh, that's intriguing.
Whoa, that's a really cool tidbit.
Nice. Okay. Amy's saying Truth and Hidden Children shows the Backyardians. Tasha the hippopotamus. Interesting. Yeah, I think I've seen her around. Yeah, that's one of the claims, Liam. Some people think that the swastika comes from Hercules. I've heard that. To me personally, the northern symbolism angle, the North Star and all that kind of stuff, there's something really holistic about it. It syncs a lot of information up. So that's personally what I think, and a lot of ancient cultures agree with that. I've made a few videos about it. If you're interested, I can send you links or whatever. What's up, Logan? So Crypto Cryptid is here. Howdy ho. Okay, so Brain Cave says this is synced with Dr. Longo's recent share on Juan on Juan about Taurus feminine bull encoding bull aligning with yoni vessel nourishing, etc. Yeah, exactly.
Ah,
Yeah. Bull is bull as well, 100%. It's way more feminine. The feminine is the circle, the zero, the undifferentiated darkness from which the masculine one comes from an extension multiplicity. The child Mercury is the unity and diversity, the all. Yeah, well put, dude. That's really succinct there. That's what these occult guys are saying too. That's what I'm like reading about right now. Is literally basically the same language as well, the same words you guys are using. So I agree with you. That is the deal. All right. So Bird Dog the Crypto Ronin says, support the sacred feminine and hit the like button with your phallic symbol.
nice. Yes.
Yeah,
please
no.
do.
Flat Earth Hippie says, you don't ever try to outrun a bear, you'd lose. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen several bears over the last 6 months in person, and they were all running actually, and they were freaking fast, dude. I've dated hippos. It's great.
I saw that comment.
That's hilarious, dude.
While you were reading, and I was like, "Oh God, that's awesome."
What's up, Robert Page? Nice to see you.
Oh, hey.
All right. And let's see if there's anything else. Okay. Alrighty. Cool. Right on, Sarah. I appreciate all that, Mario. Polar Star Musings. I'm there. Nice. That's cool.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Liam's just saying, yeah, he's seen my vids, so he knows what I'm talking about. Right on. Nice. Yeah, if you see it a different way, freaking right on. It's possible that there's multiple interpretations. So
yeah, I feel like, there are. And they all seem to connect in some way, though. It's kind of interesting.
Definitely. So that's my dive. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Nice, bub.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
As always.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Before you start, I'm gonna hit the restroom.
Okay. Awesome.
So entertain our friends here.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, as always, thanks for being here, guys. We got a blurry camera. So, as the weather is changing, you guys, what are people starting to plant, and what do people want to plant? Do you guys have any plans for your garden? I've been doing a lot out in the garden the last handful of weeks, I should say. But one of the themes that's going on recently is breaking new ground. So we extended our garden this year, which gave us some more space to work with, which in turn means digging more beds up, right? And so I just, I really feel I get such a satisfaction from digging in the dirt and breaking new ground. And I swear it's like there's something in my, I don't know if it's in my chart, if it's in my blood, whatever, but being some sort of groundbreaker or like going through and digging in the dirt is always very healing. And I feel like it's symbolic of being able to dig in your own psyche and throughout your own emotional like cycles and stuff like that. So whenever I'm doing stuff like that, like taking up grass, which is just a pain, and thinking about removing that and then like revealing what's underneath, and there's always little treasures under there, whether they be worms or little caterpillars that are going to turn into butterflies or emotions or thoughts or what have you. It's like one of my favorite things to do, I find.
It's a very Taurian thing to do.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. Yeah.
Super earthy, obviously.
Yeah, very earthy. So even though it's hard work, it's good work, I feel. And yeah, so.
I think you're uniquely suited to dig.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, there's something about it that I like look forward to. It's really
You
weird.
really like it. Yeah, it resonates with you.
Most people don't like doing that kind of stuff, but yeah, I like it. So
you're good at it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it's been fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, okay, so my subject does line up a bit with Mario, which is funny. There's some common themes in there. And so as I said in the beginning of the show, today I had kind of like a hard time pinning down what I was going to talk about. And then, like, right after we finished dinner, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the Berkana rune. And so this is my Berkana rune. Let's see if we can get it there.
There you go.
Can see it good against the curtain. So this is my Berkana rune. Some of you have maybe heard me talk about Berkana. One of the reasons why I thought that this would even be a good subject to talk about was because I recorded a episode with Brandon Bonanza and Sharon from the Over Sharon show just on Monday. And one of the things they do before their show is that they pull a couple tarot cards. So they pulled a tarot card, which was the Ace of Wands, and then they pulled it was an oracle deck of like a essential oils oracle deck or something like that, and she pulled birch. And so I've always felt a really strong connection with birch trees, but also with Berkana. Like, if I had to pick a rune that I feel like represents me or I feel strongly connected to, I would say it'd be Berkana. So this is my Berkana that I made out of birch wood a handful of years ago. And also wanted to show it too, that for people who are wanting to connect with runes more, or maybe you already have a relationship with runes, but you've never created your own rune, and you haven't even, maybe you've drawn a rune or something, but if you've never actually just like taken things from the natural world and created a rune, I really highly recommend it, because there's something so strong and powerful that comes from it. Because I think the runes want to be played with in the natural world, and I think that's why they are the way they are. I think that's why there's tight and sharp angles to them. Not only because they're easy to write, but I think that there is some sort of natural rhythm that comes with writing runes. And so this one is just something that it's just near and dear. So Berkana, birch. And the runes too, I feel like in the recent times, they've been kind of bubbling up within certain circles or the people within the community and talking about them. And I always look at runes as not just a language. I think they're deeper than that. I think it's not just an alphabet. And I think that sometimes, even though they probably were used as an alphabet at some point, or maybe they're viewed as an alphabet in certain like circles of people, I feel like they have like a personality. There's something much more spiritual and deep about them than just saying that they're an alphabet and that's it.
Oh yeah.
And whatever, just
it's like a system. It's a divination system. It's a cosmological system.
Totally.
As well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Which that just made me think about that book that Zarelith recommended about how the runes are in the stars.
Right.
Like runes as constellations.
Right.
And that like northern peoples back in the day, how could they not see the runes in the stars, right?
Right.
Like if that was where their, hearts resided or whatever, I could see how they would be able to pick out these constellations as runes in the sky. And so birch and Berkana are really closely related, because Berkana, at least when like the Germanic translation of Berkana is birch. Mm-hmm. But then if you're looking at like the Anglo-Saxon translation, it's usually the poplar tree, which is a different tree, also known as cottonwood, which right now we're kind of past the cottonwood harvesting time. But that's a tree of very late winter, very early spring is when the poplar is around. But what I was thinking about when you were talking about your stuff is that Berkana and birch are both kind of related to death and rebirth. There's a motherly energy, though, from Berkana as well. Yeah. And so there's this mother shape to it. Like when you look at Berkana, it's like a woman. Like the top here is like it's her bosom, and then down here this is her belly, when she is going to birth a child. And so there's so much like birth symbolism. Birch is also traditionally used to actually help encourage the birth to happen, like to even birth the placenta.
And then even B, birth.
Exactly. And bridge.
And you said bosom.
Yep.
And then breasts.
Yes. And
Boob.
then you were talking about bridges.
Right.
And, and so I was like, whoa, our weaves are kind of lining up. And so I am glad I listened to Berkana when she told me she wanted me to talk about her today. It's also a goddess rune, and so birch wood, which I have a piece here. This is from a birch tree that I had a pretty great relationship with that was actually in Portland, of all places. One of the birch trees that I used to walk to on almost a daily basis. I used to go and hug her, and she was in somebody's front yard, and I'm sure they saw me every once in a while doing it. Probably thought I was nuts. And one day, though, I went on my walk, and they had cut it down. They cut her down. And I was like,
oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, man, dude, like, whoa, without warning. They probably, maybe they looked at the birches, they didn't like the tree or whatever, and I looked at her like it was a friend of mine. But so when I was on that walk, I mourned it for a second, and then I kind of was like, well, I'm just going to grab a chunk of her and take her home, and now I have this. This is my paper birch that I like to have around, but I had a very nice connection with that tree. And so Berkana also, as we were talking about mother, light, and dark. So there's the dark mother, there's the light mother, the whole phrase, I've brought you into this world, I can take you out kind of thing, like that, that duality.
Totally. I was going to say there's some tarot cards. They're more modern, but the symbolism I think is great. But the death card, the figure in the death card is actually a pregnant woman.
Ah.
Just like what you're saying.
That makes sense.
Is death more so related to the feminine? Because, too, the death card corresponds with Scorpio. And so Scorpio is arguably, it's an M, right, as in mom or
right.
Mary. And then it's the balance of Virgo, which is also an M glyph, right, across from on the opposite side of Libra. So, yeah, 100%. It lines up very nicely with what I was talking about.
Yeah,
sure.
It was like kind of sparks were flying in my head when you were talking about this stuff. I'm like, whoa, this is a cool sync. And so, yeah, that goddess energy that's there, fertility, feminine healing energy. And so there's this thing about with the death card, what it makes me think of is like there's an underworld sort of thing. There's a connection to the underworld with the death card.
Yeah.
And even in the Crowley deck, how the skeleton is like literally under the water. He's underwater with the scythe.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there's this underworld, underwater, the water's above and the water's below sort of element. Yeah, B again. That is connected to Berkana, but also the birch tree, that I find to be really interesting. And then I think I love the paper birch, like the white color of the paper birch. To me, there's like a purification kind of clarity thing too.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously I haven't died. I'm still here, but I would assume my assumption is that there's an overwhelming sense of clarity that comes to us upon death. That is just my personal belief. I don't know. It could be a person to person thing. There might be a moment of, it might take a bit to get to that, maybe that moment of clarity or something. But in my mind, in my heart, it feels like there's probably something like that happens or takes place.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why, yeah, for sure. I mean, people always talk about the life review.
Right.
People who've had near-death experiences or whatever, saying that you literally go through a life review. So that in and of itself is going to give you clarity.
Oh, yeah.
And perspective.
Right.
And context for things.
Right.
Yeah, no, that lines up. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I think of. And then I also think of like bones and skeleton, like a skeletal structure with the birch tree. There's like some sort of connection with bones. And just on a personal note too, it was a while back, but and I saw her in the chat, Triangle, my lady Debbie. One of the times we all were at the coast, and I think Miri was there too, and we had a mushroom trip. And I was studying Berkana at the time, and we went to the ocean at night, and this sense of I got overwhelming like sense of Burkana being there like within the ocean. Like as I heard the waves coming in and as we're there and like the tide and Pedro too. Pedro was there too. The tide had receded so far. And I remember all of us like we were walking towards the water and it was like, whoa, man, like where's the water? Like it felt like we were just like freaking walking almost into the void. And I had this overwhelming sense that Burkana was there. And Burkana was like repeating, saying, like, I am the mother, I am the ocean, I am here. You know, and it was just like this like thing on loop that was there. And it was very just surreal and really cool. And it kind of just like brought me more understanding and clarity of what and who Burkana is and her message and like what she can be beneficial for in our lives. And I think it is to like, I don't know, just like go inward, taking stock of life and death and how important both are and that both are necessary, you know, on so many levels.
Yeah.
You know?
And then really death is just transmutation of the energy.
Right.
You know? So, yeah, a lot of people obviously have negative sort of opinions about it and everything else, but just like what you're saying, it's necessary.
Yeah, and so many people fear it too. And I think that it's mostly just a fear. It's because of a fear of the unknown, or you know, fearing that you're never gonna see the people that you were with here ever again, or you know, whatever that could be. I don't know, but I think it's different for a lot of people. And so I brought this book in, Runes and Feminine Powers, Northern Mysteries and Magic. This is a great book. I'm currently reading it. If you are interested in any of this kind of stuff, I highly recommend this book. My good friend Rachel sent this to us as a gift. Happy birthday, Rachel. Also, happy birthday to our other friend, Heidi. It's her birthday too today. So many Tauruses in our life. It's beautiful. But anyway, yeah, so this book is great. And she goes through each rune and she has just really great insights on what her take on them, the history of them, and she has very well researched and very well versed in the Northern Mysteries, and so highly recommend this book if you're into it. So she talks about how Burkana is connected to the goddess Bircha. And so she's the patron of children and mothers. And so one of her roles, Bircha's role, is that she has a garden in the underworld. And so she's basically, she like watches over and she kind of like, she's the caretaker of the children who die in infancy. That's her whole thing. And the children are sent to her garden when they die. And so she guards them and takes care of them. And that's the whole story with Bircha. And Bircha is sometimes also connected to Frigga in a way. And Frigga has more like motherly connections as well, like a domestic goddess kind of energy too. And so they're separate, but they have like very similar things going on. One of the other things I have to say too is that so the birthing of the placenta thing having to do with birch and birch being used as a means to stimulate that birth. Because anybody who's given birth or has been present for a birth knows that the baby comes first and then the placenta kind of hangs on inside for a while. You know, if you're doing a natural birth, can't speak for hospital births. But the birch being stimulating to the uterine tissues and everything and kind of like pushing that placenta out. One of the other things too, it's just like a highly protective rune. So another reason why it's really great for mothers, you know, who are going through birth, good for children, good for women also too, who are maybe experiencing like, difficulties with menstrual cycles and things like that. You know, you could literally draw Burkana on you or have a Burkana, you know, rune that you carry with you during menstruation to maybe, you know, soothe some of these things.
You don't really believe that stuff, do you? Just kidding. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and Freya, she gets into a lot of this stuff in this book. And so, There are a couple things in her book that I thought would be cool to just read. So let me see what oh, you know what? One of the notes that I wrote in the book while I was reading this, because I've kind of talked about a lot of this, I think there might be a connection with Burkana, birch, and mugwort some way. Because mugwort is associated a lot of times with Freya and Frigga. And then mugwort has the element of protection going on. So I'm kind of wondering. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's an M.
Yeah.
Whoa, mind blown. Okay. This is such a great weave. Yes.
And also.
Right.
So.
W?
Yeah.
Yeah. So W being
witch, woman, womb.
Ah, yes.
M, mother, mom,
Whoa. Okay.
So just saying it's a B, W, and an M in a lot of ways,
right.
I think.
Right.
But there is also literally the M looking runes as well.
Yeah, there are.
But anyways, just spitballing.
Wow, that's a good one, bub.
Yeah.
Yes, because as I was reading through her book and reading about the goddess connections to Burkana, I'm like, dude, there has to be a connection to mugwort as well, because mugwort, as many people have heard me talk about, is known as cronewort. And so there's the wisdom of the crone. There's the old woman. There's the witch of the woods.
Yep.
And birch, as I said in the beginning, is known as lady of the woods. So there's all these kind of connections with it. And when I talk about this kind of stuff, to me, it makes sense that I am connected to this rune.
Oh yeah.
Or that I feel such a strong connection to it and always have. Always will. And when I think about it, it's just like, oh yeah, this makes so much sense for me. So one of the things that I wanted to definitely talk about, and I remember telling you this when I was reading this chapter, but I'm going to read this section here. Burkana is a symbol of the world of plants and trees. In Northern thinking, this rune represents the emergence of an agricultural society based on settled villages, which replaced the hunting and gathering society. To the Lapps, whose tradition has much in common with the Germanic culture, the birch tree was a tree of life. They would erect a northward leaning pole made of birch wood. A nail placed at the top of the pole symbolized the pole star.
Oh, shit.
In Siberia, shamans regarded the birch tree as shamanically associated with the underworld. According to an old heathen custom in that area, a birch tree would be buried upside down in the ground in the belief that so doing would give one the ability to climb the tree upside down and thus the nether realms.
Oh, snap. That's
Yeah.
like exactly like
It's-
some of what I'm talking about.
Totally. And so this woman, I'm telling you guys, this book is freaking awesome. So if any of this stuff that we've been talking about tonight is up your alley, yeah, I highly recommend this book. It's really great. I've learned so much from this book. It's really it's just solidified my understanding of the runes even more.
Do you remember what I told you about her by chance?
Freya?
Yeah, the author.
You've told me a couple things about her, but
regarding the fact that she went through like Western ceremonial magical traditions before.
oh yeah, she talks about that in this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember who I was reading, but they mentioned her. And then you mentioned what she said about all of that. So just saying, because to me, I think it's very interesting. There's a few people like this. She was interested in Western ceremonial magic. She rolled in those circles for a while. And then it wasn't until however many years into her studies did she find or really dive into the Northern Mysteries, as she calls it.
Yeah.
And that really spoke to her, and that's where she currently is. And that's what she's writing her material about and everything else.
Yep.
And so there are people who go through the Western magical tradition, they read the popular work out there, and then they actually find Northern symbolism. And they're like, oh, this feels like I'm like at home here. This makes a
Right.
lot more sense, actually, for a few different reasons. And it's kind of more straightforward, too, in a lot of ways, I would say. But to me, as an example, like I think that's cool that she is knowledgeable of those other systems before having come across these systems.
Yeah, and it was kind of one of those things where I feel she tells the story in here, but I think she's from Denmark. I don't quote me on that, but I think she is. And she was with one of the people she was studying with, one of these more Western kind of occult esoteric schools. And she was introduced to a woman who read runes. And the lady read her runes, and she said, as I saw the runes, like I knew I had to learn what these were. Turns out they're part of her culture as well. And so then she even became more enthralled with it and like really followed it. And you can tell that this is like her shit right here.
Yeah.
The way she writes about it and the research she's done. It really comes through. And so one of the other ones, just to kind of go along with the underworld journeying kind of thing.
Yeah, I want to hear about it.
So furthermore, below the birch tree often grows the Amanita muscaria, a well-known magic mushroom used in rituals to achieve altered states of consciousness in which soul journeys to the underworld were taken. Okay, so there you go. There's just way more. It's a really deep weave with Berkana, and I'm not surprised. And then, like I said, when you're saying some of the stuff you were saying about your topic, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's totally weaving together, and we didn't plan it. So that makes it even cooler. And then the last thing I wanted to share with people from her book, in divination, Berkana indicates a process of growth, a caring, maternal influence, and creativity. Creativity here includes the process of childbirth and motherhood, although the meaning of creativity may equally extend to a creative or artistic project. So that's also one of the things I always like to remember about stuff like this. There's plenty of people, ourselves included, myself included, that we've never had children, but I sure as heck feel that I have, and I am currently even like birthing things constantly that are creative endeavors.
Oh yeah.
Or the garden is kind of like that for me. It's like this is, it doesn't always have to pertain to childbirth, but we all are constantly birthing something, or we constantly can have buns in the oven, but and they're not necessarily a child. And so this rune can also be used, or employed for somebody who is not only maybe going to have a child or whatever, but you're maybe starting a new project, or you're wanting to start a project. You can call in Berkana to help you do that. And that is why when I hear people talk about the runes and they just call it an alphabet, it totally, what's the word? It totally cuts off this whole other side of what they are.
Right.
And I think that there is so much more deepness to them, and such a more rich history that is within Northern European tradition that cannot be and should not be ignored. And anyone who is wanting to dive into them and understand them on a deeper level and not just a Wikipedia level, I highly recommend actually working with them, spending time and asking them questions, just the same as I would suggest to somebody who wants to learn plants. Don't just read about it in a book or look it up online. Get your butt outside and find the plants that you want to learn about, because they're going to teach you way more than,
Go to the source.
Go to the source. And the other thing I wanted to talk about too with runes specifically is that, for me, having a Northern European background, Swedish background, Germanic, Austrian, Polish background, I really have always felt such a strong resonance with them. And they always have had so many really potent messages for me. And so I like to sit with them and meditate with them. And that's when I've had some of my greatest insights with them, is because you're taking the time to, it's out of respect almost. You're wanting to really sit with them and like tap in to find out what they have to say.
Understand them.
And so I just have like a way of doing a meditation that maybe at some point I'll do like a video or even a show on these sorts of things, because I do the same thing with runes and plants. And I have a specific way that our great friend Regina taught us how to kind of like be able to go into the rune, go into the plant. We used to do this with tarot cards. We would meet up with Regina and we would have these really brilliant actually sessions that you were surprised what comes out. It's almost like it's a channeling sort of thing. Like you're channeling the information from the rune, and or whatever you feel as though you want to do that with. And again, protection is very important when you're doing that, and there's a whole method to it that I don't need to go in through the whole thing, but I just think it's so important to really show respect to these sorts of things if you're wanting to learn about them, and not just taking them for surface level or what you've maybe heard about them, because they also get smeared, just like you're talking about with these goddesses, of the North. It's like they've been smeared in a way, saying they're slow or they're lumbering or, whatever. Yeah. And it's like the same thing has happened with the runes. And we talk about this and Northern symbolism and all that stuff,
Right.
We just had a discussion about this the other night, with a couple people. Just it's been demonized in some way.
Oh, yeah.
And there's totally a campaign like against it to make it seem like it's this evil, untouchable, unspeakable thing. And I just feel like it's really interesting that you've begun your journey over the last handful of years with the Northern symbolism. And you've also been a student of the runes too for a long time.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we have this connection and then seeing the Northern symbolism and the pole star stuff come in, and it all is connected so intricately and beautifully that, there's a reason why this stuff is suppressed and a bit demonized and tried to make look simpler than it actually really is.
Right. It's a keystone, I think, in a lot of ways to understand a lot of other things. And I completely agree with you. I'm pretty convinced now that there is either it's through ignorance or it's strategic or whatever, but these topics, they're suppressed because they're so powerful.
Yes.
And that's the nature of all suppression, by the way.
Right.
So if you see a people being brought down, if you see a subject that's really, you can't talk about it, or there's laws against talking about it, or there's
right.
whole organizations where you can't talk about it, well, it's because there's something there.
Oh, totally. And this makes me think about what came up in Vibrant, this last one for Taurus, when we were talking about Trillium, and I brought up how Trillium is listed as like an endangered plant. And so to be mindful when you're harvesting it. And Kyle had a great point of like thinking kind of like, well, maybe they tell us it's endangered because it's so freaking powerful and potent.
They don't want you to use it.
That they don't want you to use it. They don't want us to be familiar with it. So they're going to put it on an endangered list so that people will kind of like, oh, yes, but it's endangered, so I'm not going to work with it or whatever. And so I thought that was a great point, and it made me think about a few things after he said that, because I think there's something to it, just like there's something to what we're just talking about with all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, exactly.
Yeah.
You totally got it.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's a lot of what I really wanted to get done. Oh, okay. So there's two other things. So Native Indian tribes of the Americas would use specifically the Ojibwa. Is that how you say it? Ojibwa?
I don't know.
If someone can correct me if I'm saying it wrong.
Right.
Ojibwa, maybe. The Ojibwa tribes would wrap their dead in the birch bark.
Ooh.
Okay, and I remember this when I was doing this research a while back about birch. And then it makes me think of the mummification. I mean, the white, it looks like a bandage, or, there's like some sort of like mummification thing. Or like I brought up the whole bone, like the bones thing, like looking like bones. And so they would wrap them in birch, and then they would bury them. And so it's like symbolic that, again, that birch death connection.
Right.
And I'm seeing Ojibwa. Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate that. And then so again, like there's always these folk traditions with plants and trees. And so birch was used as protection for the home. So like planting a birch like near the home, or even like closer to a doorway, like maybe near, if you have a house and the door's on one side, putting the birch near the door, it was said to help like protect the home and everyone in it from witchcraft, which is always a really big thing when you start looking into the folklore of plants and trees. It's usually lots of protection from lightning, lots of protection from witchcraft, and lots of protection from fire. And like evil spirits or something like that. Those are usually the themes where that comes in.
Right.
For sure. And then so like again, crosses of birch hung over the door to repel enchantments. So, which would be, maybe like an enchanted spell that was maybe put into your direction or whatever, but using the birch cross as a protector against stuff like that. And then the Thompson Indian tribes, they would use the birch as a contraceptive. And so they would use it like if a woman had maybe she's had many children, and she's maybe getting closer to an age where, she's not going to have children anymore. They would use birch. So they would basically take the placenta and they would wrap it like in a fish net that they would have, or some kind of net. And then they would stick the placenta with a bone. They would stick a bone in it, and then they would hang it in a birch tree. And that was symbolic of like, we're putting like a stake in this, like it's kind of done sort of thing. And we're hanging this placenta in the birch.
Wow.
Symbolically to, as a contraceptive sort of, symbolically speaking kind of thing.
Right.
The other thing with birch is that it's typically used for like inflammation and stuff and pain. It kind of has, if I remember right, it has the same compound as white willow. Which is the
white willow.
Yes, exactly. So white willow, for people who don't know, is where aspirin was created from.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, 2 questions about birch medicinally.
Yeah.
Or practically. So when you say people use birch like this or that for these reasons, like what's the preparation, or how do they use it, or what does that look like?
Mostly tea would be a preparation for stuff like this. Like if you were in a birthing process, or an oil, or like probably back in the day, it'd probably be an animal fat. It would probably be, they would either steep or, boil it with animal fat.
And then boil what part?
Oh, the bark. Sorry.
Just the bark.
Yeah, like the bark, not necessarily the paper, but like the inner bark. So you can even see. So like the paper would be stripped away. It's kind of blown out. Too bad. You can kind of see though. So if you strip away this paper, there's maybe I can show it here. Okay, so there's like a layer. You see that layer? This brown layer here. That's what you would be using medicinally. So you pull the paper away like that. And then you would be taking this section here. That whole area could be stripped.
Nice.
And then that's
good to know. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a great question. And so that brown ring is what you'd be using medicinally. You can also use the leaves though too. So in the leaves have tannins in them, if I remember correctly, and they're astringent. And so that's the other reason why it would be good for a mother postpartum, or like after she's birthing. It's going to tighten tissue. So anything that's astringent tightens tissue, whether it be a toner you put on your face, like outside skin, or internal organs, or what have you.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a good question, babe, because now, that's good to show people.
Right. And then now I just know too, there's so many different parts of the plant, depending on the plant, that people use.
Yeah.
from the roots to the leaves to other things,
Right.
And then the other thing too, I was going to bring up, Sarah G just brought it up. Birch sap too. Maple gets all of the rave, but birch/yum.
Yeah, the birch water. You can you can tap those trees
Right.
and you could drink the water that would be turned into syrup. And I know that there's tons of nutrients
Right.
in the birch water. So yeah.
Totally. Have you had that ever?
I haven't. I'd love to.
Right, man. I mean, if it's watery versus
Yeah.
sappy.
Yeah, and just like with maple is the same way because you're like boiling that down.
Oh, so
you
it's
don't
more-
tap
oh,
it and like
right.
maple syrup doesn't just come out.
You don't just get your stack of pancakes
No,
with your butter and stuff and just
no.
goddamn. That'd be nice though.
It would
huh?
be nice. I mean, probably in some cartoon world it's like that, but yeah. So no, but I would love to try the birch water.
But can you imagine the water being you could use that for all sorts of things.
Oh, I'm sure you can. Yeah,
Right.
It's really high in nutrients. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I mean, and I don't know enough about it to speak much more than that. Just knowing that that's the deal, but yeah,
Right.
we could probably get our hands on some.
Is there an Aunt Jemima tree?
I hope not.
I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know that much about these things, guys.
Yeah. So, well, cool. Thank you all for listening to my Burkana weave. That's a fun one. And I love that it lined up with what Mario was talking about too. And as he was talking, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good weave. So I'm going to go through the chat and see what people have to say up here. So yeah, I think it starts around here. Oh, Family Fungi is listening while he's harvesting mushrooms. Awesome, dude. That's
Hey, James.
freaking awesome. What's up, James?
Hell yeah, dude. That's great.
And Sarah G she's planting right now. Let's see if I can. That's awesome. Because I asked people what they were planting in their garden while you took a potty break. What's up, Debbie?
Hey, Debbie.
Good to see you, as always.
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right. And Liam is sowing beetroot in the morning. So he has sweet potatoes to plant, needs to build a trellis first. Awesome. Yeah, me too. I love weeding as well. All right.
Isn't it kind of interesting weeding and wetting, how close they are?
Oh, yeah.
You just replace one of the E's with the D's. I don't know what that means, but that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yep, straight from the ancestral well. That's right, Snake. Good to see you, my man.
Yeah, Snake Jones. What's up, man? Hope you're doing well.
And let's see here.
J-Lo's here, too. What's up,
hey,
J-Lo?
J-Lo. How's it going? Nice to see ya, as always. All right. Yes, Bird Dog. The trees, they do take root for us. And that's why when I had that situation with the birch tree and I went to her that day and they had been cut down, I was like, whoa, man. Like, yeah, I mean, that's the life of a tree in the city or in the forest. They cut a lot of trees around us too, but it was just one of those situations where, yeah.
I actually love that. The trees root for us.
Yeah.
There's multiple interpretations of that statement. That's cool, dude.
That's so true. Okay. Yeah, the bones hold the memory. Yes. And that's why I think birch has, to me, that connection with bone and then the connection with death and then the connection with rebirth. Yeah, there is some sort of like ancestral memory there.
Well, and also that's really interesting too, because guess what? Like the last part of us physically to be
That bones.
our bones.
Right.
So it's like literally true.
And then what are the things, you can find the bones of an animal and work with it, or you can, you know what I mean?
It's the last thing that's going to actually perish.
That's true.
I like what Pedro said right below too.
Yeah, I was just going to click that. You're so right, dude. We are all going through our life review in real time. Yes, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a good way. And I feel like, and I know, with Pedro, we've talked about this subject many times, but, thinking about it that way perhaps might even help us get out of here more easily.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know, if
totally.
you are thinking about that we're living life and having a life review all the time, constantly, that if you live your life that way, that, yeah, maybe on the other side, not to say you don't have a life review on the other side, but perhaps it'll be an easier transition because you have done that work, you know?
I mean, dude, there's a reason why so many groups. I know I always talk about, lodge groups and occultism and stuff like that, but it's like death is such a big part of understanding what they do, what they're interested in,
Right.
and what they revere and what they want to know more about and all that kind of stuff. It's like death is like we live in order, I think, to understand maybe perhaps how to die properly, or like the science of death.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and again, Da'ath, the hidden Sephiroth that accesses the tree of death, sounds like death itself. And all the things you brought up with life and death and the feminine and everything else. Yes, very weavy. A lot of our things tonight were totally, woven together.
Yeah, that's a good
And
one.
Pedro is a very wise guy.
He
on so many
is.
different levels. Always appreciate his perspective.
Our very good homie of ours. All right. We should have Pedro. Pedro, you should come over for a Last Thursday sometime.
Oh, yeah.
And
if
we
he's
should just
interested.
have a live Last Thursday if he would want to. That'd be really fun. Yes. So just a suggestion, of course.
No pressure, dude.
Yeah.
I bet he's down, though.
Let's see. What else? He was saying something about making runes. I made a rune set of rocks I found on that night in the beach. Oh my God, no way. That was a Manzanita trip.
Yeah.
That was a special one. That's really cool. Yeah, the runes were there that trip, man. I felt that for sure. Let's see. Okay, so Sarah G is saying that so beautiful. Into the woods, you can collect the entire birch tree tube. And then she's saying the innards compost over time and leave the outer bark totally tubular. Awesome. That's so cool.
Sweet.
That's a really great tip. And, looking at this wood, it feels that way to me. Like you can even see like the wood, the inner wood it almost looks like it's more porous. Like it's definitely I would say kind of a softer wood.
Did you already say that some runes have been made out of birch wood?
Oh yeah, like the actual circular ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've seen that's like a semi-common sort of thing, right?
Yeah, it is.
So there's that too.
And this Burkana is made out of birch too.
Right.
From the tree, the same tree that I'm talking of.
Ah, that's
so
cool.
the same tree that I had my friendship with in the city, and then the one I was showing you, the big chunk. This is the same tree. So anyway, just a little weave
awesome.
on that too. But yeah, people will have whole birch, like paper birch, limbs or whatever, and make runes out of them. And they're usually really beautiful. All right. And BMW. That's
yeah, I
funny.
just saw that too. That's
yeah,
funny.
BMW and 3 thinking out loud. Yeah, that's really funny. All right. Brain Cave. Let's see. The B as an M is also the 2 trees triangle PK brought up earlier, aka twin pines with V between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
It is.
Twin Peaks, yeah. Totally.
Twin Peaks. Look at that. Yeah, dude. Whoa, this weave is like seriously awesome and blowing my mind. That's why I'm saying these runes, they're so loaded. All of them are.
They're so loaded and they're so simple.
And they're so simple. They're so
yet
loaded.
So complex.
They're so deep.
Yeah, deep.
And not to be underestimated. Seriously. That
Did you notice Brain Cave's avatar image, by the way? I think it's just worth you at least acknowledging it.
So it's a brain, obviously.
But there's an opening.
Oh, it's a stairway.
So it's a brain
it's
cave.
the stairway to heaven.
Yeah.
Looks like there's like a stairway with.
I just think it's hilarious. The
brain cave.
name is funny, and then his avatar is funny too.
Yep. Oh, and then my Sherry is Bob Marley and the Wailers. There you go. There's a BMW. Love me some Bob Marley. If you've never hung upside down from a tree deep in the forest, you ain't living. I bet you have hung from many a tree, Snake Jones.
Upside down.
Upside down. What's up, Gordy?
Hey, Gordy.
And we've got Joshua the Branch here.
Hello,
I found
Joshua.
the psilocybin mushroom under the ash tree. Yes. Yeah, they're not exclusive to birch, definitely, but I think that they have I think the psychedelic magic mushrooms, they choose their trees wisely or something like
they
that.
probably do.
You know what I mean? So there's a rhyme and a reason.
I could believe that.
And herbs are like that too,
Right.
They're very strategic. Yes, Snake. Yeah, runes are not a toy. I agree. And it's for like somebody, they're, as I said, they're to be taken seriously because there's wisdom there, for sure. So let's see. Oh, there goes our chat. Well,
Slow internet.
yeah, slow internet. Thank you, Miri, both teachers of wisdom. And let's see. All right. Posted some photos to Telegram, taking cannabis clones. Great show. Oh, awesome. Nice. Thanks, 5 Gallon Philip. Do you want us to check out your photos? Because we can. Ben's got 2 bulls. They're babies. Oh, yeah.
Dude, cool, man. That's awesome. When I saw one of your Instagram photos or something like that, and I was like, oh my God, that's so perfect for right now.
Right now.
It's
Exactly.
it's great.
Taurus season bull babies. Oh, sweet. Kabir inspired me to get a hori hori. What all can you tap? Maple birch. Good question. I don't know what else you can tap.
That would be worth looking into.
I bet there's other trees that you can tap. I'm so
Yeah,
glad
totally.
that you got a hori hori. Such a great freaking tool. All right. Trees in the roots. You can play the role. Okay, so yeah, Pedro is down to play the role of the guy on the couch for last Thursday.
Oh, dude, you'd be perfect. You were meant for this role.
Oh, yeah.
So Ben, go up. He was saying, I fully agree.
Oh.
I think he was talking about probably the runes being in the sky. Unless he's talking about something else. But I agree fully the constellation should be a cow, though. Nice. That makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
dude. I mean, 100%, actually. So, I mean, the reason why it's also Ursa Major is called the plow. It's like what pulls a plow? Cows, ox, things like that. So, anyway, I think that's interesting.
Right. Yeah.
I hope that's what you're referring to.
All right.
That'd be funny for one episode. We just literally put a couch back there, and it's just Pedro smoking weed and hanging,
Hell yeah.
and chiming in every once in a while. But it's like really brilliant and on point.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. What's up, Lou? Good to see you, my man.
Hey, Polymathing.
Glad to see you last Thursday as always. Alrighty. Well, yeah. Great comments in the chat as always. Lots of great insights and people having questions, opinions, and shared thoughts with what we're doing. So very cool.
Definitely. Hell yeah.
This was a great weave. This is a really nice one.
I really truly do love your weaves.
Oh, thanks. I love yours too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like yours are more I don't even know what to say about them, but I feel like they're more grounded or something. Sometimes I feel like I like to learn things, or I like to talk about things that I'm just learning about. And so then when I'm talking about it, I kind of feel like I'm like all over the place of trying to connect ideas or concepts or whatever. And then I feel like a lot of your weaves tend to be things that you've known about for a while, but you're just really deeply interested in that topic or whatever. So there's more of like a grounded sort of thing, which makes total sense. You being an earth sign and then me being a watery sign. I'm trying to, I like to talk about things that are new, even though I might put my foot in my mouth, or I maybe don't understand the concept
I'll
entirely.
put my foot in my mouth even though
I know. That's absolutely true too.
Yeah.
But your style reflects, I think, kind of your earthiness. And then my style, I think, kind of reflects my watery sort of nature.
Yeah, that's a good observation.
Or whatever. So I've kind of noticed that about myself. It's like I look at talking about older things as being kind of boring. And then you probably look at it maybe of not so much being safe, but it is a safer thing.
Well, yeah, because it's like I know it, and so I feel more confident speaking about it.
Right.
So then there's like the security of that, which I guess is a Capricornian earthy sign thing to do.
Totally, it's true. So I kind of feel like I go out on the ledge a little bit more, and I'm like, I just read about this last night, and I'm going to talk about it today,
Right?
Versus your approach. So, anyways, but that's how we complement each other too.
Yeah, and who knows? There might be a freaking day where I'm like, oh, I got to talk about this because I just learned about it, and
totally,
but,
right.
Yeah, so
nice.
That's it. Those are good points. But I was seeing Parker Flowers is telling us sycamores and black walnuts can be tapped. Supposedly, sycamore syrup tastes like butterscotch. Oh, I like that. That's cool. Thank you for that. Oh, show us those guns, Mario.
We'll see.
Nice.
DM me, dude.
Awesome. Cool.
Cool.
Let's see. I want to see nice birch sink. I was just ranting to a bunch of buddies that Canadians put birch sticks out front of their house for decoration, but have no idea all the medicine the birch possesses. Yes. Well, and that's interesting. Maybe they're doing it even too subconsciously, because I was talking about how you can place birch like near doorways and stuff like that for protection. So it's like maybe subconsciously they have no idea that they're doing that. But they're doing it. And then, so anyway, they're kind of getting some sort of like protective force by doing it or whatever. Anyway.
Right.
But yeah, birch does possess some potent medicine, as do so many trees and plants that people just
Dude, I love the
pass
idea.
over.
Like, so would you want to drink birch water?
Yeah, you can.
Or
remember,
like make tea out of birch water or something?
I don't know about tea, but.
Or like, could you use it as like, if you're using water in something, could you just simply use tapped water that way? And then you're getting even more benefits than just normal water.
Probably.
I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know.
I mean, well, the boiling of it, I don't know if you'd want to boil it necessarily, but I can't remember, it was maybe a couple of years ago, there was like a company that was like selling birch water at like New Seasons, which is like kind of I don't know, they're not fancy, but they're kind of like a hipster expensive grocery store in Portland,
right?
But I can remember there was like a little while there where there was like one or two companies that were coming out with birch water, and you could just buy it, in a bottle or whatever,
Right.
I haven't seen it around, but yeah.
Nice.
You probably can.
I'm interested. I want to know more about what can be tapped too.
Well, when we're in Wisconsin, I wouldn't be surprised if we'd be able to find something, because I know like in Wisconsin and then like in Minnesota and kind of like in the northern states, in that area, there's a lot of birch trees. I mean, I grew up around a lot of birch, which is another reason why I think I have a strong connection to them.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, it'd be really cool. So anyway.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like this idea. Sarah just wondering, I wonder if the black walnut sap has anti-parasitic value.
Ah.
That's cool to think about.
That's a good question, because yeah, as you probably know, and as
that.
and as other people in the chat probably know, black walnut husks and the hulls of the black walnut, yeah, definitely anti-parasitic. You can use that. I use that in one of my salves, one of my wound healing salves, the black walnut husk. I also use it in soap too. But yeah, really great for keeping things clean and for like parasite cleanses and things like that internally. So
I think some inks are made out of black walnut.
They are. I bought you some once.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can boil the husks down, and you can, and the inks can be really beautiful, like depending on how long you cook it and everything else.
Totally. And yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah. There's like different shades that you can get and things like that. It's
like
really cool.
Browner to blacker sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Nice.
definitely.
Hell yeah. Trees, man.
They're pretty important. Pretty
cool.
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet, guys. Well, I think that'll do it, right?
Yeah, I think that's it.
You guys are awesome. This was really fun, as usual. Once again, thank you to our patrons.
Yes. Thank you so much to everyone who supports us and myself on the Healing Home Patreon page. Chance, Binaboo, Inland Sea, Liam Shrimp Anderson, Amy Messner, Miri and Hank, Jenny G, Erica Rodriguez, Moonlander, Mary, Catherine Strofeld.
Totally. Thank you guys. Also, you're almost at 800 subscribers last I checked.
On YouTube.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't subscribed, I'm assuming everyone here probably has.
Probably, but
you
if you
never
haven't-
know. If you haven't, you guys should totally subscribe.
Yeah, because
And
that's
then-
awesome. That's a pretty cool.
It's a little milestone.
That is a milestone.
Yeah,
pretty
for sure.
awesome.
And then we're also doing a show together on the Healing Home
Yep, this coming Tuesday.
about Venus.
Yes.
Which actually really fits in line with everything we were just talking about, to be honest. So there's a lot of esoteric stuff that we can bring up, and the power of Venus and all of those types of things very much fits with some of the topics you had brought up and I had brought up.
Sweet, yeah.
So I think it's going to be like a very nice transition to that.
I'm looking forward to this.
So
one.
we're going to do a show. It's going to be called The Grace of Venus. So on the 16th, Tuesday at 4 p.m. PST. So join us for that if you're interested. And I just figure we should remind people, too, that you have a newsletter and that the next issue drops on the 3rd. And you can go to Michelle's site, michelleshealinghome.com, and sign up for the newsletter. It's a great way to support what she's doing, and when you support her, you support me, and literally those people are the first people, aside from patrons actually,
Yeah.
but these are some of the first people to know what your next offering is.
Yes, they are. Yeah, patrons get my offering updates one day before everybody on the newsletter does, which gives them an option to buy it before everybody else, because sometimes I sell out pretty quick. And so anyway, that's just a good way of, if you're wanting to make sure to get some of my offerings, it's a good way to do that.
And you include like recipes and stuff for people.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's kind of a good way to keep tabs of what you're doing too, because you'll include links and stuff like that.
Yeah, typically, I typically share the recipe for whatever the offering is. This month, I only shared it with my patrons though, because it's such a near and dear recipe
It's
that
more exclusive.
is a little more exclusive to me. So I shared it with my patrons.
That makes sense.
But yeah, and then all the things that I'm up to or articles or whatever is always in the newsletter. So
Right.
try and pack it for you guys. Yes, so this month's offering is number 32, CBD, cannabis root, and white willow bark salve. This is a great one. We were just talking about, we brought up white willow bark just tonight. The barks of trees, certain trees have very great and potent pain relieving properties, and the white willow tree is one of them. All willow trees actually do, but the white willow in particular has a really strong pain relieving property. There's cannabis root in the salve, which helps to drive everything in deeper. It's so awesome. There's pain relieving and inflammation reduction elements to the roots as well. The roots have their own set of terpenes and terpenes in them, which is really fascinating. And then I infuse this also with frankincense and myrrh gum, which just also really helps to drive the medicine in and open up the body and open up the skin and the pores to receive this medicine.
I know I say it all the time, but people love your stuff, and you've done this long enough now to where you've really refined your recipes, and you just don't make things that don't work anymore.
Yeah, no, it's true.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just like you'll experiment, and if you're not feeling it or if it's not working or whatever, it's like the things that you have now, people like can rely upon and depend on to work. And this is one of those things.
It is one of those things. And, I just made a really big batch of this, and really big for me is like, it's 12 ounces, which is one batch. Like that's a whole batch. Like when I make a salve, when I make this salve, I make 12 ounces of it, which breaks down to 8 2-ounce tins. But I sold this to a friend of ours. His stepdad was recently diagnosed with ALS. I think it was maybe like 6 or 8 months ago when he got diagnosed. And he started using this particular salve. And dude, he bought a whole 12-ounce jar from me just this month, because he said it's one of the only things that's bringing him relief while he's going through something as like not fun as ALS,
and serious as ALS,
and serious. And so it really brings me a lot of joy knowing that it's helping him on such a level.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That he wanted to freaking buy a whole jar of it. And so anyway, it's really cool. So anyway, this salve is great, and I'm really happy to share it with everybody as always. So
Definitely. Ben is cracking me up in the chat. Super funny.
Nice.
Okay, so you just mentioned doing bulk orders.
Oh yeah.
So you just did a bulk order for a friend.
Yep.
Right? And you've done it for massage therapists.
And yes, that same, basically our buddies. Same couples. Yeah, our great friends, Dave and Vanessa.
Who you're going to be interviewing Vanessa
I am going to
pretty shortly.
Yep.
But these, beyond them, you've done other bulk orders for people who want a lot of whatever. And so if people are interested, they should hit you up for that because it's a good way. I mean, people call it white labeling or whatever, but there's ways to get specific formulas done.
Yeah.
Using your knowledge base too, right?
Totally. And I'm happy to do bulk orders for people. So yeah, if anybody's wanting something like that, and I can do soaps that way, I can do salves that way, I can do teas that way. Maybe not so much teas. Scratch that. But yeah.
Yeah, you've done that before.
I have tried to do that before, and it doesn't work out very well. It's fun to make them. I'm happy to make them sometimes, but when it comes to like a bulk order of tea, it just yeah. Anyway. Whatever, forget I mentioned it. Salves, tinctures, soaps, those sorts of things. That's a better bulk custom order. So anyway, yeah, we can talk about that. Body butter is another one too.
So these are all your offerings right now?
Yeah, right now this is my current list of offerings.
Gotcha. So you see there, cannabis root, white willow bark salve up there at the top. And then if you want anything from Michelle or want more information about really any of your products or whatever you have going on, michelleshealinghome at gmail.com, michelleshealinghome.com, or you can just text or call her, 503-568-1569. And then we have a snail mail P.O. Box address, which is P.O. Box 930, Carson, Washington, 98610. We should really check that thing.
We should.
There could be something waiting for us that's been there for like weeks because it's been a little while, if we're being honest.
Yeah, we should check it.
And then if you're interested in the stuff I'm doing, you can check out symbolicstudies.com. I'm doing tarot readings and private lessons, graphic design stuff. You can also text or call 503-893-4606. And then we have Michelle on Spotify, and we're going to start seeding her stuff out, all over the place. But we started with Spotify. We have to add more episodes and things like that. But if you use Spotify, just give her a follow because that would be awesome.
Yeah, be great.
And then you just did a fun interview recently.
Yes, Homestead Gardens with Katrin Planty. We had a really good conversation, and Katrin, she has a really thriving Facebook page. Actually, it's the Goshen Acres Homestead. And actually, Binna introduced me to her because she knew that we would have overlapping just interests with the gardening stuff. And dude, Katrin has a lot of stuff to share. She just put out her first book, and I had a really nice time talking with her. And I really like her insights and her methods on gardening. She's been gardening and living the quote unquote homestead life since she was a young child. So she's like taken a lot of the things she's learned from her mother and employed them into her own life and gardens. She makes her own products. And yeah, it was a really great conversation. I really liked her essence and what she had to bring to the table. So if you want to learn more about that kind of stuff and everything else, you can check that out on the Healing Home. Episode 25.
You think her real last name is Planty?
I think so. Her husband's last name is Planty.
Nice. That is awesome.
So it's like her husband, she's taken her husband's name, but
right. Yeah. Okay, cool.
But
That's really
cool. She was wonderful. And when I asked her for an interview, she told me right off the bat that she isn't, she's not, she was nervous and she doesn't typically do interviews, but I just have to say she did great, and I wouldn't even have been able to tell. And so she just was really great and has so much experience too.
Dang, that's awesome. Yeah, Ben is saying that's her real name.
Yeah, it's rad. Awesome. Yeah, she they're doing animal husbandry and everything,
That's perfect.
The whole nine. They're doing it, so it's really cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And then you just did this interview with Beth Martins.
Yeah, I was just on Beth's show on Wednesday, actually. We went live, and that was really fun. So we talked a lot about, my experience as an herbalist, how I got started, talking about the empowerment that comes from learning about plants and gardening and making your own products. We went in many directions, and it was super fun. And I'm really enjoying getting to know Beth, actually. It's just been really cool. And me, Beth, and Rachel Sunseed are actually going to be recording our part 2 of our Dark Feminine chat.
Dude, nice. That lines up with all the things I'm talking about too.
No, totally. So that's happening. We're recording it on the 24th of this month. So I'm not sure when Rachel's going to put that out, but that's going to be on Rachel's channel on Odyssey, the Galactic Tea Center. So when that comes out, I'll let people know. But yeah, me, Beth, and Rachel did a chat about the Dark Feminine back in November of last year. And we knew after we ended it, we all were like, we need to do a part 2 of this. And so now we're finally going to do it. So very much looking forward to talking with those 2 ladies.
Very cool. And then I did a presentation last week. I mentioned it earlier, but I did a few hours on the Hierophant card. And so I went over all of the cards in my collection. It was a good time. I think that there's a lot of good information in there about this card. And so if people are unfamiliar with how I do things, I go from the newest card in my collection to the oldest card in my collection with that same card. So the newest Hierophant, which probably came out like 3 or 4 years ago with a more modern deck, all the way to like the 15th century. So it's a fun deep dive just to see how the cards have changed over time. And all of the little symbolic insights you get from comparing and contrasting the cards is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's super cool just to know that like you have all those cards physically, like all those decks are in tow.
All of these decks are in my collection.
Yeah, and you just literally scan them, and that's really cool too.
Right.
So
definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome deal. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. We appreciate you, and we will see you. Some of you guys will see you on Tuesday.
Yes, definitely. Come join us for our chat about Venus on Tuesday. It'll be really fun. Very much looking forward to it.
Definitely. All right. Until next time, take care.
Adios.
See ya.